So it's late at night. You know the scenario. You're on Amazon, probably supposed to be sleeping, but instead you're doing what photographers do best, researching gear you didn't know you needed. And then you see it, a third-party battery charger for Nikon EN-EL15 batteries. Affordable, compact. It can charge two batteries. And this one even has an LCD screen that shows the charging process in real time. Now, if you shoot Nikon Z cameras, that sounds pretty appealing. You pop your battery in, and the screen tells you exactly what's going on. Charging percentage, progress indicators. If Nikon's official charger is just a simple blinking light, and this one has a full display telling you everything that's happening. This can't be a bad thing, right? Well, maybe. Because once you look a little deeper into how Nikon EN-EL15 batteries are actually designed, and more importantly, how they're supposed to be charged, the story gets a lot more interesting. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why that little LCD screen might not be telling you the whole story. If you shoot with cameras like the Z6, the Z6 III, the Z7 II, or Z8, you're probably using some version of Nikon's EN-EL15 battery. And specifically these days, the EN-EL15C is the one most people are using. It's a fantastic battery, good capacity, reliable, and it supports in-camera USB charging on most of the newer bodies. But inside that little plastic shell, it's actually a fairly sophisticated piece of engineering. And understanding what's inside it explains why the charger design matters a lot more than most people realize. Inside an EN-EL15 battery are two lithium-ion cells. Each one of these cells has a nominal voltage of about 3.6 to 3.7 volts, and when fully charged, they reach about 4.2 volts. Nikon combines those two cells in series, which means their voltage adds together. That's why the EN-EL15 series batteries are rated at about 7 volts and around 8.4 volts when fully charged. So already we're not dealing with a single simple cell. We're dealing with a small battery pack made of multiple cells working together. And when lithium-ion cells are connected in series like this, their voltages need to stay within safe limits relative to each other during charging and discharging. That's where the electronics inside the battery come in. Because the EN-EL15 isn't just two cells inside a plastic box. Inside the pack is a small protection and management circuit. That circuit monitors things like voltage, current, and temperature, and it protects the battery from conditions like overcharging, over-discharging, or overheating. But there's another interesting detail inside these batteries that a lot of photographers don't realize. There's actually a tiny microcontroller inside the battery. That little chip keeps track of information about the battery, things like charge status, usage history, and in some cases even charge cycle data. And that information can be communicated to the camera and to the charger. Which brings us to the charger design. If you look at Nikon's official charger for EN-EL15 batteries, you'll notice something interesting about the contacts. There are 5 pins. At first glance, that might seem unnecessary. After all, if the charger just needs to deliver power, you'd think 2 contacts would be enough, positive and negative. But Nikon designed the system with additional connections. Those extra pins allow the charger to read information from the battery, monitor things like temperature, and identify the battery pack it's charging. In other words, the charger and the battery can exchange information during the charging process. Now, it's important to understand something here. The charger is not individually charging the two internal cells. The battery itself manages the cells internally through its protection circuitry. But the charger can still interact with the battery through those additional contacts to make sure charging stays within expected limits. Now, let's go back to that Amazon charger for a moment. If you look closely at many inexpensive third-party chargers for EN-EL15 batteries, you'll notice something different. Most of them only use two contacts, positive and negative. That means the charger itself isn't using the additional data or temperature pins that Nikon chargers use. Instead, it's basically supplying power to the battery pack and relying on the battery's internal protection circuitry to manage the rest. Now, to be clear, that doesn't automatically mean these chargers are unsafe. The battery still contains its own protection system, but it does mean the charger itself is not interacting with the battery in the same way Nikon's original charger does. And that's where that LCD screen can be a little misleading, because while it may show numbers that look very precise, percentages, voltage, charging progress, that information is usually being calculated by the charger based on external measurements like voltage and charge time. It doesn't necessarily mean the charger has deeper insight into what's happening inside the battery pack. It's measuring the outside behavior of the battery, not the internal state of the individual cells. And that difference matters most over time. But before we go any further, here's the question that really matters. If the battery already has its own protection circuitry inside, and the charger is mostly just supplying power, then why did Nikon bother designing a charger with 5 pins in the first place? Because that detail ends up affecting how the battery behaves over hundreds of charge cycles. And that's where things start to get interesting. With lithium-ion batteries, the real enemy isn't a single charge cycle. It's hundreds of cycles. As the batteries age, small differences between cells inside the pack can start to appear. One cell might age slightly faster than the other, one might reach full voltage earlier, and over time, those differences can slowly reduce the usable capacity of the battery. That's one of the reasons camera manufacturers put so much engineering effort into their battery ecosystem. It's not just about getting electrons into the battery. It's about monitoring temperature, protecting the cells, and maintaining predictable charging behavior over years of use. And ironically, the charger that looks the simplest on the outside, Nikon's single blinking light, is actually part of a system designed to work closely with the electronics inside the battery. Now, does that mean you should never use a third-party charger? Not necessarily. Many photographers do, especially when traveling or when they need to charge multiple batteries at once. But it's helpful to understand what you're trading when you choose convenience or price over the original charger. That LCD display might look reassuring, but the real intelligence in the system is happening inside the battery itself and in how the charger interacts with it. And once you know what these extra pins are actually doing, Nikon's charger design starts to make a lot more sense. Sometimes the charger that tells you less is actually doing more. And if you've ever wondered why your batteries seem to age differently depending on how they're charged, that little detail might be part of the answer. If you shoot Nikon Z and you're building out your battery kit, understanding this stuff can help you get a lot more life out of the batteries you already own. And honestly, that might be the most underrated gear upgrade any photographer can make. And if you enjoy these kind of deep dives into how Nikon gear actually works, consider subscribing. Many of the people who watch these videos aren't subscribers yet, and the goal of this channel is to help Nikon shooters understand their cameras well enough to avoid wasting money and get better results from the gear they already own. I've also put together a free Nikon menu guide that walks you through some of the most important settings on your Nikon camera. It's a free PDF that you can keep on your phone that can help you locate important menu items while you're out in the field shooting. If you'd like a copy, you can find the link in the description below. I'm curious about your experience. Do you use Nikon's original charger, or have you switched to a third-party charger for your EN-EL15 batteries? Let me know in the comments, especially if you've noticed any difference in the battery life or charging behavior. I read every comment, and your experience might help other Nikon shooters make a better decision.